Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Batch Working Group meeting. Today is August 14th, and we've gathered here to discuss a couple of items. We have Amy with us. I just want to remind before we get into the items that we should all adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct and be respectful to each and every one of us. So yeah, Amy, take it away.
Well, thanks. Oh, interesting. I see that I'm like the only one on the agenda, so I guess I'll dominate this meeting. Hopefully other people come up with topics. I can go ahead and share my screen. Let me first click on the project board. I was thinking that we can improve the way that we do release tracking, and to get more of like an overall view. So let me share my screen. Um, Sorry, I'm like running through settings. Okay. Sorry about that. I was figuring out settings. Okay. I think now I should be able to share my screen. It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Let me see. That shouldn't have happened. I made you co-host.
There are two Amy's and only one is a co-host. So you'll probably have to, I don't know why, but
Okay. Yeah, I think now both should be co-hosts. See, Amy, if
Okay,
you can share now.
let's, yeah. Okay. So yeah, so on the left here is like the issue tracker. So these are GitHub issues only, no PRs. And you can see the release candidates that we have here. And I pulled them from something that Kevin and Mihal made together, for what issues they were tracking for 014. And then you could see here on the right, like the different stages that we can track these issues. So there's one column where I was chatting with Kevin offline about like the different stages of a GitHub issue. So like one stage could be like the kept portion, and then one of the other stages could be like implementation portion. So these are the PRs in progress that are release candidates that we can add to 014. And this specifically affects, I think, when Mihal does the releases. He also mentioned that like sometimes he'll delay for 2 weeks if we feel like the contributors can like fit their work within that extra 2-week buffer. So yeah, if this is useful for folks, let me know. Also happy to throw it away if it's like too much overhead. Um, and then if like, project owners want to incorporate it into their workflow, yeah, like happy to toss over like all of the admin stuff to them as well. But yeah, that was a quick tour of the release board. Is there anything else that I could click on here, or like maybe if the group has input or feedback, we can chat about that.
I see Yuki has her hand raised.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for creating this dashboard. Basically, so this categorize looks good to me. My question is, so how to add any kind of issue to the to each category dashboard?
Yeah,
Or
I think
rather,
that I think I need to add a new automation maybe where it automatically adds an issue if we add like a 014 label. And then it'll automatically put it into, I think, candidates or something like that. And then from there we can categorize it into the different columns. But I think I need to like look more into that.
And typically on GitHub issues, there's a section called project on each of the repos. And I believe I don't know in this case because it's not in the Q repo, but in other projects, like it will be, you can just select the project for an issue and that will also automatically add it to the board.
Yeah, on the bottom, let me do full screen. Okay. Let me refresh this. I think there should be like a search bar on the bottom where you can like add things into each column. But I can definitely figure this out offline to like how to add new things to the column. I'm like looking at this from my smaller screen, so adjusting to the
I think you're just not
visual
signed
layout.
in.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's why. That makes sense. But yeah, so on the bottom here, you can also like there's a search bar, and then you can type out Q as the project, and then it'll find and then like the specific GitHub issue that you want to add into whatever column or like GitHub PR, and it'll find it for you. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Additionally, so how to move issue from one column to another column? For example, once we finish any kind of issue, how to move it to the category column?
Oh yeah, you just drag it. You like click and drag it, but I can't because I'm not signed in.
Oh, I see. No automation currently, right?
Um, Not currently, but we can definitely add some to like check, when a design review has been merged or something like that, we can mark it as done. But I think there's GitHub workflows that we can automate. Yeah, this is just like an initial pass.
Yeah, it gets a little tricky with the candidates because like there's 3 stages or 2 stages for Q. Like, this issue is tracking both like structure parameters, is tracking both the KEP and the PR. So like we can always drag that issue to done, but that does mean that like both parts are complete. So I kind of like the idea of having like the candidates as just like a tracking issue, and then the PRs can kind of be like there's automation that you can add to say like when a PR is merged, it's automatically moved to done and stuff like that. We could do that one, but yeah, for the candidates, there is a separate board around like issue tracking, which that could be more clear on like when we have an issue created and there's a PR merge and that issue automatically gets closed, it is automatically reflected in the board usually.
Yeah. Cool. I guess as far as next steps, can we create a like because this is created in Kubernetes SIG projects. Ideally, this would land in like Q projects. So let me see who's on this call. I guess Yuki, if you have time, if you could like add this onto like the Q board as well. I also see that Mihal, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I don't want to put like too much bureaucracy into the process, but I think like almost all of the questions were about like the workflow, so how the workflow should look like. So maybe it would be beneficial also for future contributors, like to put like a really small, lightweight manual of at least like how we want the workflow to look like, the ideal workflow, and like we could work towards that workflow, or we could put it like info about how it works today, and yeah, we could also have some discussion if necessary, and it would serve like as a manual for contributors to
That
use
makes
it.
sense.
Um,
Yeah.
my question would be like, I don't think I've ever used like GitHub projects, like how the access control looks like. So do you need to be like member of Kubernetes 6 to be able to move these things, or
I think ideally we can move these things through, like most of this through automation. I think it's just this might need the most manual moving. But I think like for moving these into various columns, maybe we can do it through just labels and it'll like automatically do it for us. And then in terms of like the functionality where you like click and drag type of thing, I think that needs like access control. So you could be like admin of a repo, obviously, but you can also be like admin of like project. So what I would imagine is like all of the project like reviewers and approvers at the very least are like added as admin onto this board. But yeah, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. It's just sort of like an initial stab at it.
got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice idea, especially since we discussed, I don't remember whether it was during the last meeting or maybe like during one of the previous meetings not that long ago, that we would like to have more like observability and more insights into like what goes into a queue release, so that also like among partners, so we can share also what are like our priorities of our organizations when it comes to what we want to deliver. So I think this is like definitely a step in that direction, and thank you, Amy, for working on this.
Oh, okay, no problem. Cool. Yeah, I guess we can work on this offline then. But yeah, I need like a queue approver, I guess, to create this, like create a board in the Q project, add me and Kevin as admin. I'll seed everything and then like redo this board again. And then I'll add all of the like reviewers and projects owners as a like admin as well. And then I'll follow up over Slack. But the next topic under this I want to chat about is I noticed these two GitHub issues didn't have any assignees. And then I also couldn't find, well, at the time that I checked, I couldn't find PRs associated with this to like kind of like figure out who the assignees were. I could do that for other ones. So I was curious, like, so I know that these are 014 candidates. Um, did we have ideas of assignees for these, or more just hoping that the community would sort of like pick it up, or just curious about these two?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's the latter. So I know that
Oh, cool.
Mihao expressed some interest in like working on Elastic Ray clusters. But yeah, I don't think anyone's currently working on these items.
Yeah, I can point to I can point to the thread which mentions this issue, and I think there is someone who are interested to contribute to that outside of Michal too. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was just curious. Nothing. Yeah. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen. Oh, I think Yuki, you still have your hand up.
Yeah, so just a reminder. So I added the current queue release tracking to queue repository now. So can you check if this is expected for me?
Oh yeah. Do you mind if I do it offline? I just need to like fumble around with my screen a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna just stop sharing. Okay. Cool. And then let me see if I covered everything. Yeah, I think I covered everything. And then my
There
next
was a
question.
issue tracking one, right? Didn't you? Wasn't there another one for issues?
Oh, I
Or no,
think
that's private.
yeah, I created a private one for myself just to kind of play around with it. I haven't really thought that much about like a specific like bug like type of tracking board, because that seems a little bit more involved. Need to like think about it more and like what automations are available. But
Yeah, I think one thing that would be worth maybe, like, I would love to get more But I'd like to be able to review the PRs, and so I think maybe like as we're like I don't know for Yuki or Mikhail if there's like room to kind of have like right now I think we're like assigning like on a PR trying to give like a reviewer time to review it, and then the maintainer can go. But I don't know if there's any. I think maybe that works fine, but that is something that I'm finding. It's like trying to get more time to review QPRs is a little challenging if they're all approved quickly. Or the approver reviews them quickly. It doesn't give me a lot of time to actually look at some of these. So I don't know if there's like if we can spread that load a little. And I don't know if that's part of the project, but
yeah, Mihal Mimowo is so freaking fast. The dude is so speedy. I love it. But yeah.
But yeah, it's like sort of I'm kind of have to call dibs on a couple of PRs to at least get a review in. But I think that's something that could improve as I think we have people that are interested in contributing more. So that's just something to, I guess, keep in mind. I don't think we need a project for it. I know for SigNode, we had like issues, PRs, and bugs. And there's a lot of management of that I don't think we need, but that's something to keep in mind as we're trying to get like more contributors involved. Thinking about that a little bit would be helpful. But anyway, thank you, Amy, for this.
Yeah. And then the next topic is more just because I'm curious. Because like, so I saw a GitHub issue specifically about adding workloads into like the Kubernetes scheduler itself, which is like super exciting and makes total sense. And I do see engagement from like, like folks here, like the working group batch members on like the related design docs and things like that. I was just wondering if there's opportunity to collaborate more with like SIG scheduling. Because like I think for this working group and this project in particular, there's like a wealth of like end users here, right? That could be useful that like work in this domain. Outside of just discussing like specific queue integration efforts, like more broadly like use cases or like ways we could influence their like workload and reservation discussions. And like I plan to attend more SIG scheduling meetings as an example. I was wondering if there's opportunity to do like the other direction of like having SIG scheduling come join us. But just like a more casual ask of like ideas that we can think about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I actually joined the meeting now, so I can introduce a bit what workload scheduling is.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I'm mainly involved as a SIG scheduling TL in this effort. And like, let me say it in this way, like queue use cases are definitely a big part of the overall effort, and they are, we have them in mind. We should definitely talk more about them openly and about the ideas. So currently we started discussion about use cases that workload scheduling should support, and this is the intermediate ask for you guys to contribute to those use cases, to comment on which of those are important for you. But I think one important thing behind workload scheduling is the idea that workload scheduling itself should be a separate component so that queue can use that rather than does the workload scheduling by itself. So I think this is the main idea behind how queue might be impacted. It's debatable how to get there, but many people believe that workload scheduling should be itself as a standalone Kubernetes feature. And it would be good to reduce the number of external schedulers which need to do workload scheduling, because to avoid races and do it more optimally. So the first thing is ask for engagement in discussions. We are starting from gathering the use cases we want to support. Later, we will probably talk about what kind of scheduling criteria for workloads we should have. We will have discussions about architecture then. So a lot of opportunity to discuss. We definitely want also to learn from you. On the other hand, we already have a pretty good contact with Q guys because we are sitting next to each other. So we have definitely a lot of knowledge about this. And one more thing, this is the long-term plan. So we definitely ask for your engagement there. But I think there will be opportunity for
I can't hear
also
you anymore.
short term, how we could improve the cooperation between Q and scheduler in the meantime. So there are several ideas, for instance, around gang scheduling, and there are some new proposals which we are discussing. So in the short term, I think there is also opportunity to do something, improve something before we have the final workload scheduling in settled down, let's say this way.
Yeah, still seems like early stages. That all makes sense. I think my takeaway is like mainly like interact with like the documents for use cases that you mentioned. I think one thing that I'd like to mention is that like yeah, I know that you all probably like, sit next to each other, but like figuring out a way to like pull those conversations like out into like the community would be useful. But I see hands raised. So yeah, I'll let you all chime in.
I believe Mihal was ahead of me. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mihal.
in the first one, Dominic, can you mute? Okay, I'm sitting across Dominic, so just making sure that there's no echo. Yeah, so we definitely don't want to make it like either Google centric or Q centric, and yeah, absolutely, Amy, like what you said is super important to like the entire team. That's why like we are trying to be as transparent as possible, and with those conversations in SIG scheduling, like there are documents, there are requests for comments, requests for use cases. So I think like we as working group batch, because we work under like the umbrella of SIG scheduling, like we have bigger responsibility even than other working groups or SIGs, like to comment and to help with that effort, because we already have a lot of experience like with running workloads, scheduling workloads. So please absolutely like take a look at the document, respond to those requests. And I think like one of the motivations of doing like workload scheduling like in Kubernetes is that it's been so successful in Q and in every other basically AI scheduler or second level scheduler that we currently have, whether it's Q, Volcano, anything else like that's the one of the founding blocks to build on top of like new better features. So that way, like we want to bring it back to core Kubernetes, and we should definitely like as a working group batch we should participate in that. So yeah, please go to the document, give it a read, and contribute. Thanks.
Yeah, I had a quick comment about Amy's comment about, involving SIG scheduling, or perhaps, having some members from SIG scheduling join us. I just want to provide a little bit of historical context. When Batch Working Group was created, the idea was that we'd have representatives from SIG Node, SIG scheduling, apps, as well as auto scaling, if I remember correctly. And over time, I think what has happened is we have a bit of a gap from scheduling perspective. We had Abdullah, we had Aldo, Wang Wei, who were kind of co-chairing this meeting, and then over time they had to kind of exit Batch Working Group. So I think that is probably what you're feeling, a bit of a gap from that perspective. It might be worth just identifying someone from Batch Working Group, perhaps from even someone who's a lead, just to join us regularly to kind of provide us the input, and someone who has all the context from that perspective to guide us make right decisions when it comes to scheduling decisions. So yeah, that was my 2 cents.
Interesting. Yeah, that's useful. But yeah, I mean, it also, like, I don't mean to, like, make formalities around this. I think I'll just, like, try to join more SIG scheduling meetings as well to, like, see what's going on upstream. Thanks for everyone's, like, insight and input. That was, like, really useful. And yeah, I think, like, obviously the document upstream is, like, early stages, it seems like. We're still in the gathering use cases phase. I'm, like, very looking forward to seeing where the lines are sort of cut, I guess, like, uh, and maybe this is more in the integration conversation of, like, what aspects of scheduling are kind of, like, within scope versus out of scope. But I think it's too early to chat about that. I see 2 new hands up, Kevin and Andre. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious on how we can have the gang scheduling. I know gang scheduling and there's workload aware scheduling, and there are two kind of parallel threads going on. And I'm very interested in this one, but I'm unclear on the direction at the moment. Is there, like, where should we go to get more understanding of this over time? Like, is SIG scheduling going to have dedicated conversations on this, or, like, because I'm more just wondering, like, where the synchronous conversation of this will live, or will it all be async on the Google Docs?
Right. So currently, it will be a part of SIG scheduling, but it's possible that we may need to form a working group to focus on workload aware scheduling, because the area is not related to scheduling only. I would even say that that the topics we are touching, so workload scheduling, as Michał said, it's also a big part of the batch working group scope, because you guys are working on workloads on scheduling. So, but I think it doesn't make sense to extend batch working group with workload scheduling, because that's still probably more separate than common. But regarding the workload aware versus gang scheduling, I think it's important to notice that workload aware scheduling is a more long-term plan, which will take time to develop. But gang scheduling is something that we believe that sooner or later should become a part of Kube scheduler. We are discussing in which scope it should happen. So there are few possible options. And what I was recently arguing and opting for is that Kube scheduler should make the integration between queue in the short term make it more smooth, so that whatever queue is, queue can have a much better logic of gang scheduling because of implementing, for instance, tasks. So kube scheduler should be capable to consume this this placement proposal and simply apply it. That's why we were recently working on a CAP which allows setting nominated no names by external schedulers, and Q might be one of them who is using this mechanism. It should shorten the gap for races, because setting nominated no name makes like some sort of reservation of resources, so that scheduler should not put anything else there. So that's one of the efforts that we are working on, and this is the area that we could collaborate in the short term. So you can look at the gang scheduling as something that is a short-term idea, how to give this functionality to everyone who does not necessarily use Q. But at the same time, we want to allow Q users to make the most of the gang scheduling functionality to be useful in scheduling.
Yeah, I think that all sounds good. I'll let other people ask their questions now, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Hey,
Can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, hi folks. Yeah, I'm just like, I think I have a similar kind of question as Kevin asked about, collaboration between the working groups. So I think this effort, I mean, I think that looks great, but I think my concern is they kind of heavily involved the work that it's been done here for the last 2 years, plus the work has been on working observing, especially like right now there is a trend of, with all those desegregation serving, prefill decodes, and all those things that's happening within, LLMD community and VLM. I think we should definitely take this into consideration while working on, like workload aware scheduling within Kubernetes, right? So my question is like, I have a few questions actually. So the first one is how we can ensure, this effort is being communicated across all the working groups, and we can gather, as much feedback as we can from their learnings and findings, and ensure we don't, get lost with all those, different meetings that we have within the community. So this is the first one. Maybe, Dominic or Michael, if you have any ideas there, I would love to chat about it.
Right. So I definitely accept the feedback, and we should think about how to communicate it well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have probably a better answer now. We let us think about that.
Yeah, so we could, like, I don't know how these things and changes like as big as spanning like multiple SIGs and multiple working groups like are usually communicated. Like maybe we could go to the steering committee and we should ask them to do something special, like to propagate this news and to have like a wider call for feedback, because yeah, I think many SIGs, many working groups might want to chime in.
I think the whole idea of creating a working group is that it we discuss topics that span multiple SIGs. So I think batch working group is probably the right forum. And then when it comes to questions related to specific SIGs, we have to engage with the SIG specifically. Uh, In addition to that, I think SIG architecture is another one in case, there are specific architecture related questions that need to be answered. That would be my take. Mache, I think you have some thoughts on
Yeah,
this.
I'm sorry for cutting the line, but as a current steering member, literally I was about to say what Swati just said. The working group role is to ensure the communication is flowing smoothly between all the sponsoring SIGs. If you are seeing a problem with a particular sponsoring SIG participation, it will be the organizer's role to reach out to appropriate SIGs. All of the SIGs, they usually have either weekly or every other week meetings that the batch working group or a particular people from representing batch working group, because it doesn't have to be always the organizer or the lead of a particular working group, can always reach out to them and have a discussion that, oh, we are interested in your feedback about this and that. Remember that whenever you're working on any kind of enhancements that affect core Kubernetes, those enhancements are still to be reviewed and approved by a particular SIG, because working group per se doesn't own any code. Q is somewhat special, although I was just looking it up because I was certain that Q was under SIG apps, but it's actually registered under SIG scheduling. So that would be the best option to initiate the discussions and combine. If you have people, and ideally the leads are representing, like Swati said earlier, the leads, and that's what we had initially, the leads are representing various SIGs, but of course life happens and those roles, we cannot expect all the leads to always be across various organizational groups, and we have too many, we have many of them currently within Cube. So it will be that, and then trying to gather the feedback this way is probably the best option for to proceed.
Yeah, definitely. I think it makes sense. I think my only recommendation or suggestion is to collect, especially the workload our schedule is extremely important from my perspective. Work that is going on is great. I think that we just want to collect as much feedback as we can from multiple working groups, SIGs, and all those discussions which is happening across the community. Especially right now with the trends of we want to make sure Kubernetes is much more stable for AI workloads and where all those workloads is going towards to. So my only is recommendation here is to increase awareness of this extremely important proposal. Yeah, we'll let Ilya and Yuki also talk about it. So thank you.
So let me summarize. So talking to SIG architecture is one of the approaches. Do you mean the second might be forming a working group dedicated to workload aware scheduling and involving into it all affected SIGs?
Yeah, I think it was Kevin's idea. I think we can go both ways to use existing working group, or to reduce number of meetings, or have a new working group and then some sort of use those meetings. I think that doesn't matter which way we're going to do. The most important for us how we can ensure all those stakeholders are aware of this initiative. Right? Does that make sense?
Right. One of the part of the plan is to discuss it during the KubeCon. So definitely everybody should be able to hear about that. But we will try to communicate our plans and the effort to other SIGs. That's a good point.
I think Ilya was next, and then Yuki.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So yes, I would just want a quick comment on Dominic's. So adding is super important.
Oh, I think you cut out for like a large portion. Can you start
Oh, no.
over again?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Sorry. I was about to say that Dominic's information, or what he mentioned, that it's super important in light of gap for gang scheduling in Kubernetes natively. Q does excellent, or did excellent work introducing workload abstraction, which essentially introduces the notion of gang scheduling for some workload types. However, it's still a second tier scheduling, if you will, where ultimately Kubernetes, when even workload is admitted, Kubernetes still makes final decision what to be scheduled and how and when. And more importantly, while Q uses very opinionated types it currently supports, it does have pod integration, but pod integration notably lacks gang scheduling because actually each pod represented by individual workloads, so and scheduled independently, so it's not even uses Q gang scheduling construct. So it's super important to add this natively in Kubernetes because we will run in some discrepancy. And second part of my kind of quick comment is my spill plug. So Q today, as I mentioned earlier, has very opinionated types. It has boutique support types it currently supports. It does pod integration to cover the rest, notably stateful sets and deployments. But as I mentioned, also it does it so in very particular way with very particular restrictions, such as stateful sets are not mutable. You cannot change anything outside of replica count. Deployments or other workloads practically immutable. In other words, you cannot follow the same life cycles of the Kubernetes native objects, of changing them, upgrading, scaling. With the introduction of KEP 77 implementation, we start supporting scaling, and notably batch v1 jobs now can be scaled using adjusting parallelism up and down. And here's my plug. We also introducing now scale for deployment, introducing native deployments for Q, where we can now support full lifecycle upgrades for deployments, including scaling up and down and upgrading. So I'll post the link to issue, and it has a link to PR. It also have small recorded demo how deployment could work natively in Kubernetes. But I would like also kind of to solicit for comments on those issues and PRs. Thank you.
Can you also link the link that you're mentioning onto the agenda? Let me link the agenda in the
Yeah, I will do
chat.
that too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I take mic?
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this might be just comment. So I already actually I already checked the revised gang scheduling cap. So actually Q topology aware scheduling supports so gang of gang scheduling over the gang scheduling. I mean, so Q topology aware scheduling supports schedule a chunk of pod set. And additionally, we support so pod set group, not pod set. So actually, so I mean, so we have a lot of fine-grained gang specification in Q topology aware scheduling. So if we want to replace topology aware scheduling mechanism with new Q scheduler gang scheduling implementations, the Kubernetes gang scheduling mechanism should implement gang of gang scheduling. However, as I checked the Google documentation, they obviously mention we do not support gang of gang. So so I think the only direction to replacement for topology aware scheduling is supporting workload aware scheduling, I think. So yeah, this is just input to Dominic and Michal Wiskonski. Yeah.
I think it's the worth to add such a comment to gang scheduling. issue because there's actually no decision yet. That was initial proposal and revised proposal how to move forward. I think the voice is important in this discussion, so feel free to comment in the back in the issue.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, like in a queue concept, when we have talking about gangs, right, for topology over scheduling, like does it mean that we can deploy workloads and preempt resources from other gangs? Like maybe I need to follow up on documentation, but how does it work in practice?
Yeah, actually, so there are no documentation for gang of gang in queue documentation. So let's say we have a reader replica and a worker replica, and so in that case, so gang is gang is a set of reader and worker, but gang of gang is each reader or worker. Does that make sense?
And do we like schedule this? Do we reserve resources for the entire gang in that case, or they part?
Yes, yes, that's true. So we reserve entire resource against an entire job, but we want to find better placement. For example, better rack, better data center or something. Each for so role, like worker and reader or something.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think I could imagine use cases when gangs of gangs could be some sort of elastic. I understand that you can have a multiple kind of jobs which HPC job or AI job which require different racks, different resources you want to get to them, right? And you want to schedule them, but at the same time maybe you want to have a workload like a workflow which doesn't need to pre-reserve all the resources. And now there is an open issue, an open thread within queue to make it work. Yeah, but I think this elasticity also definitely needs to be considered in this gang scheduling cap. I fully 100% agree.
Yeah, so just a quick comment because I've compiled like some internal documentation for Google on this, and I will work on exposing this and other features that we recently introduced in Q.13. Like to the public documentation of Q, but basically the idea is that for a workload for a set of pods, like you can actually first of all divide it into a group where you define like a size of this group, and then you can define a topological requirement for each particular group. And for this, we use a concept that was called pod set slices. And then for the entire pod set, so for the group of groups, you can also define a topological requirement. So in this example, we have 144 pods. We divide them into two groups of 72 pods. Each pod, each pod needs to go into a subblock or a rack. And it's required to go, and the entire workload or gang of gangs needs to go into a single block in the Google terminology. Just wanted to share that.
Do we see the same terminology, across the industry, like how they're maintaining, I know it was a kind of discussion around labels, right?
Yes, I believe that, for example, I don't know if I have this hand, but there's like a similar concept, for example, in the Slurm world, and I can post a link to this because this is like public document. So in the Slurm world, like you can even define like a hierarchy of blocks. So in Slurm, it's called block plugin or block scheduling. That's being worked on by ScudMD, the creators of Slurm and NVIDIA. And they have this concept of blocks, whether you have, first of all, blocks and then hierarchy of blocks.
Just if you could go back for a second to the original job example.
Yeah.
Something to clarify. So in that example, it appears to be that the gang of gangs is more of a logical construct where we still have a gang as the entire job, but then internally we subdivide into different topologies. So kind of second tier of ganging, if you will. Is that correct understanding?
Yes. Like I would even put it as rather than gang of gangs, I would put it as there's a gang and there are sub gangs.
Right. So yeah, because go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, what I was listening to gang of gangs, what I was imagining is that there's going to be multiple nested pod sets, if you will, or nested workloads. In this case, we have one workload, but internally we subdivide into logical blocks, which will be, in this case, enforced by topology tasks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So currently there are two competing gang scheduling approaches, and I think one of them allows to have gang of gangs, and the second one is more focused on a very specific use case, which kubescheduler could support, but it's not a generic use case. So whenever we have pods that are not identical within a gang, in a revised approach, it would not work. But in the original approach, those should be supported. So I think whenever you believe that one of those implementations works better for Q, definitely please speak up in the back in the issue so that your voice would be heard, not just our internal discussion and decision about that.
Yeah, I think like from my point of view in the gang scheduling part, I'm pretty sure there will be more complex use cases. As I said before, around like pre-filled decode and with desegregation serving, I think they still will require similar capability there. When you will have a different pod template for your leader and for part of your LLM inference job, right, or workload, we can think about similar to, as I mentioned, I talk about MPI, when you have a launcher and the nodes, which definitely have a different pod template spec, right? But they must be placed in the same rack within data center. Which I can like what I want to say here. We definitely should consider those use cases part of gang scheduling cap, at least to make sure APIs will be feasible for those cases. Otherwise, we have to still rely on Q for those type of things, right?
Right. So I think the good question is how Q could benefit from gang scheduling implementation in scheduler, and it's not obvious how it could benefit. But the way I see it is that whenever Q does gang scheduling and later applies it to execute it on kubescheduler, then without gang scheduling supported in kubescheduler, everything goes from scheduling to binding right away. While with gang scheduling, we have still more control over when binding happens and when scheduling, I would say secondary scheduling, because the initial scheduling was performed by Q. We should or could think about how to make the most of this process beneficial for Q. And one of the ideas is that we could, for instance, separate preemption from scheduling. So we may not do the preemption until the gang is accepted. So whenever scheduling was wrong for some reason, we don't start the preemption yet. This is one of the examples what we could do, adding gang scheduling support to Kube scheduler, while still allowing other schedulers to do the most interesting part, which is scheduling.
I guess we're on the top of the hour. I just want to remind everyone Andrea has an agenda item which is related to reviewing. Is that okay, Andrea? If you just let everyone know and be an FYI that please take a look at the document and let us know your feedback. And Yuki, I believe you've added a bunch of links that were being put on the chat. Thank you for doing that. If we want to discuss these items further, I would suggest we move it to next week's agenda, if that's okay, and we can kind of have a in detail discussion about this. I think for now, I think we need to call it a meeting. Thank you so much for joining and for the great discussion that we had today. Thank you so much. See you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.